Axel Cushing, Editor-in-Chief at GameLuster, and this is The Score, a weekly digest of news and commentary from GameLuster and around the industry for the week ending July 8th, 2023. Late last week, the source code to Ubisoft's 2004 open-world shooter Far Cry unexpectedly appeared on the Internet Archive. The identity of the person or persons who uploaded the code are unknown, but from what many can tell, it is authentic, albeit not absolutely complete. Vincius Medeiros first put the word out about the file's appearance. Current speculation is that the code comes from the PC version of the game. The code does not contain any game or sound assets, so it's not like you're suddenly able to get Far Cry for free, though it's possible somebody could, with considerable effort, make that happen if they chose to do so. Apple's overly ambitious foray into the VR space appears to be getting pruned back rather radically, with the company cutting production forecasts from 1 million Vision Pro units down to an estimated maximum of 400,000. The Financial Times reported from unnamed sources that the manufacturer contracted for production of the spatial computing device, Chinese firm Luxshare, was preparing to produce less than 400,000 units. Two other Chinese firms, who are the only providers of specific components, stated Apple has only ordered enough parts to produce at most 150,000 units. A second generation of the headset, including a version intended for the mass market segment, is reportedly being designed with assistance from Samsung and LG, but that version of the device is unlikely to come out anytime soon. Various business analysts are revising their initial release numbers down, but are expecting serious market penetration within 5 years. I'm not seeing it. In other news out of Cupertino, Apple has filed an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, claiming that the 2021 ruling against it in the Apple versus Epic case was wrong. As a brief recap, Epic Games sued Apple in 2020 for anti-competitive practices after Apple pulled Fortnite from the App Store in response to an update allowing players to purchase V-Bucks directly. In 2021, U.S. District Court rejected all but one of Epic's claims, finding that Apple was engaging in anti-steering practices, and ordered Apple to enable developers to offer alternative payment options. Apple and Epic both appealed the decision to the U.S. Ninth Circuit, where a 3-judge panel upheld the ruling. Requesting an en banc hearing, which involves all the judges on the Ninth Circuit, the full court upheld the ruling last Friday. Apple's filing to the Supreme Court argues that the District Court wrongly applied a universal injunction, given that Epic is, quote-unquote, an individual, non-representative plaintiff, and that the Ninth Circuit wrongly applied a universal injunction, given the case's basis in California. Apple also claims the ruling, quote, raises far-reaching and important questions about a federal court's authority to issue injunctions to companies not directly involved in the case. I suspect this case is not going to be heard during the next session of the Supreme Court. If it is, I strongly suspect the court will not rule in Apple's favor. Apple's position is completely ridiculous on its face, ignoring the fact that all of those so-called indirectly involved companies are all directly involved with Apple, which means it doesn't matter where they are located. And just because Epic isn't representative among those other companies doesn't mean that what Apple was doing was permissible. $3 trillion in value, and this is the hill Apple seemingly wants to die on. A change in a Korean mobile game's age rating has led to embezzlement charges against members of South Korea's Game Rating and Administration Committee. Late last year, the GRAC asked Nexon Games to either remove uncensored art from their gacha title Blue Archive, or have its age rating changed from 15 to 18+. Blue Archive producer Kim Yong-ha ultimately changed the rating, though Nexon did release a censored version of the game using the lower age rating. Fans of the game, however, cried foul, and almost 5,500 of them submitted a petition to have the GRAC investigated. And, shockingly, the investigation did find evidence of wrongdoing, with some $46,000 US in funds being diverted to Bitcoin mining efforts. 3 department heads resigned, though there is no word as of yet about any sort of criminal charges. National Assembly Representative Lee Sang-hyun thanked the Blue Archive fans who petitioned for the investigation, stating, "The Game Management Committee, which was consistent with conservative game censorship and regulation, was actually festering and rotting inside the agency. The truth hidden in this audit by the Board of Audit and Inspection was a suspicion that would have sunk to the surface if it were not for the 4,589 users who participated. While I'm unlikely to install Blue Archive anytime soon, it's encouraging that sometimes the power of the people really can be felt." Sad news this week, as IGN reports that Emile Morel, creative director for Ubisoft's long-promised title Beyond Good and Evil 2, died at the age of 40 of unspecified causes. Morrell started at Ubisoft in 2009, working as the senior game designer for Rayman Legends. He was originally the associate creative director on Beyond Good and Evil 2 before stepping into the creative director's role after Jean-Marc Gaffroy left Ubisoft Montpellier at the end of February this year. Morrell was remembered fondly by his colleagues through various LinkedIn posts made this week. As for Beyond Good and Evil 2, the game is still officially in pre-production 6 years after its original announcement. Our deepest condolences for Morrell's family and friends for their loss. Yuji Naka, co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog and former director at both Sega and Square Enix, has been found guilty of insider trading. The Balan Wonderland director has received a 2-year suspended sentence, 4 years probation, and 2 fines totaling 173 million yen, or roughly $1.2 million US, after admitting to insider trading charges for violating Japan's Financial Instruments and Exchange Act. Naka's charges stem from 2 purchases of stock in game studios whose titles hadn't been announced at the time, one in November 2018, the second in December 2022. It's particularly interesting that the 2022 incident was tied up indirectly with Square Enix, the company who allegedly fired Naka from his role on Balan Wonderland in 2020. While there's no denying Naka's accomplishments, it's things like this which will undoubtedly tarnish his legacy going forward. Finally, Unity CEO John Riccitiello spoke this week in an interview with Axios about upcoming plans to incorporate generative AI tools into the Unity game engine. He outlined 2 tools Unity is currently working on, one being a ChatGPT-style tool for creating both code and art assets, and a second which sits inside a game as a module developers could use for various purposes, such as NPC conversation options in RPGs. The art assets, which are planned to be used for training the planned Muse tool, will, according to Riccitiello, mostly be from internal sources, including Unity subsidiary Weta Digital, with some being licensed from third parties. These particular comments came about a week or so after Unity launched an AI asset marketplace and dropped one of their 10 partners in the first 24 hours for supplying assets from Sketchfab. Riccitiello, correctly in my opinion, believes that there will ultimately be 2 paradigms at work with regards to AI assistance in game development. Quote, some companies will try to make the same game with less to save money, and other companies are going to try to make a better game with the same or more now that they've got so much more power, he told Axios. Had he just stopped there, I probably wouldn't have been terribly bothered by that statement. But then he had to go and keep talking, saying, quote, my guess is that Camp 2 wins. My distaste for John Riccitiello and his corporate philosophies are long-standing and deep. Under his so-called leadership, Electronic Arts became one of the most reviled and hated companies in the gaming industry. At the height of the subprime mortgage crisis, with bad actors across the financial sector, it was somehow EA that got voted worst company in America. Twice. Back to back. The well-known meme of game studios being killed and dumped in a mass grave by EA came about and flourished during Riccitiello's tenure. This is the same man who blithely declared that the DRM for Spore was uncrackable, and had to watch as the internet made a liar out of him in less than a week. Because of his unshakable zeal and the ludicrous belief that everything had to be always online, Riccitiello oversaw the death of Maxis as a viable division within EA, with their absolute bungling with SimCity. Worse, he left EA shortly after, so nobody could ever truly hold him accountable for his ineptitude. Anthem might have been the nail in the coffin for BioWare under Andrew Wilson, but it was Riccitiello who dug the grave. So when I say that he is a blight on the games industry, I want you to understand precisely where I'm coming from. Nobody should be happy about the notion of incorporating generative AI into a games engine. Nobody should be thinking that it's a good idea to build components into a game which will ultimately outdo the player, to say nothing of how it will inevitably be used to reduce headcount in game studios. Put that technology in the hands of a complete neophyte and nothing good will come of it. Put it in the hands of a man who spent 5 years destroying the company he was supposedly in charge of, and the potential catastrophes beggar the imagination. I'm morally certain this is a technology Riccitiello doesn't understand any more than he did Secure ROM. The difference is that Secure ROM just screwed players and made games unplayable. Generative AI, no matter how pristine the sources, does not allow anybody to win in any sort of creative endeavor. At best, you're spending basically a bunch of time correcting errors and fixing things that didn't quite come out right. At worst, you've got absolute tripe, whether it's word salad in text or hands with too many fingers in human images. The games industry rushed to embrace the internet without really thinking, leading to all manner of terrible practices and diminishment of gamer autonomy. They rush to embrace web-like development models without really thinking. The notion of move fast and break things leading to the bane of live service games and perpetual updates. And now, just when we've got voices in the industry starting to come out and say that the current models are not sustainable, you've got people like John Riccitiello rushing to seize on the newest shiny technology and unleash the latest plague upon the industry. Because they're so enamored of the idea of it being new and shiny, they don't stop to think about potential consequences. And I mean really thinking about them. If somebody waited 5 years, rigorously studying generative AI, and could produce quantifiable arguments that laid to rest every possible creative, ethical, and logistical hurdle, I might be more inclined to look favorably on it. But I can't trust anybody to undertake that sort of long-term examination, and for damn sure not John Riccitiello. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe. You can find other news articles along with guides, reviews, and features on our website, GameLuster.com. The opening music for the score was written and performed by Nirav Gandhi. I'm Axel Cushing, Editor-in-Chief at GameLuster, and this has been The Score. Thank you for listening.